Hello there. Thank you for staying with us and a very warm welcome to another edition of Channels Beam. I'm Victor Matthias. Now, the wait is over and Nigeria has finally joined the other nations to have rolled out the 5G network. However, despite the good the new generation of network will bring, it seems it is just might be for a section of the populace. Now, today on the show, we will look at how this works, the technicalities, as well as how one can be safe from cyber threats when it is fully rolled out. First in select states and then hopefully in every nook and cranny in the future. But before we get into all of that discussion, let's, as always, first take a look at the trends in the past week.
Nigerians marveled as another $23 million looted by former military dictator General Sani Abacha was returned to the country from the UK, with some already making suggestions on what the money should be used for, including settling striking members of ASU. In total, the amount of looted funds recovered from late head of state Sani Abacha in the last 24 years has been put at $3.65 billion. This was revealed by the data gathered from the federal government, World Bank, and Transparency International. The president of the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, Emmanuel Osodeke, came under criticism for referring to other universities that announced resumption, despite the union's ongoing strike, as quacks. The ASU president's comments generated heated reactions amongst Nigerians, including university scholars and Nigerian academics.
Well, there you go. Those were the trends in the past week. Now, joining us to look at today's topic, we have with us right here in the Lagos studio, Emmanuel Paul. He is the managing editor at TechPoint Africa. He has reported extensively on startups, policies, and industry trends in Africa with a human-centric approach. We also have with us Wande Adalemo. He is the founder and CEO of Wave 5 Wireless. He has proven skills in large-scale wireless and Wi-Fi deployment, system integration expert for wireless, VoIP, and broadband. It's a pleasure to have you both on the show today.
Thank you very much.
Of course. We also have joining us via Zoom from London in the UK, Samuel Ubido. He is an innovative information security professional and speaker with expert knowledge in cyber and physical security in industrial automation and control systems. It's a pleasure to have you on the show today.
Thank you very much. Sure.
Of course. So to start the show, I mean, right now the excitement and everything, you know, it's all out there already, and we understand that this rollout pretty much is happening in 190 sites, you know, in Nigeria, spread across Nigeria. I mean, spread across Lagos and Abuja. One day, first of all, as we begin the show, quantify what this means as it stands. 190 sites, you know, compared to how large the country is. Where are we with 190 sites?
So I probably would not say, let's quantify 190 sites. I rather will start with the fact that we have 5G, right? Because if you say 190 sites, maybe a local government in Lagos probably would get lost in the 190 sites and not be enough because of the nature of what 5G is. I'm sure we'll get to that. Yeah. But as far as the Committee of Nations is concerned, as a sovereign state, if everyone is flying the 5G flag, we're also flying ours, and that's critical. The second thing is that a rollout has started. We hope that we can see faster deployment, some innovative access to funding for the operators because this is not cheap. And then we can see a faster standardization of that radio technology because it's still working on the standards. The 3GPP is still working on the standards for that radio standards. We hope we can see a faster standardization of that standard so that many more people can come into the fray and say, okay, we're not, because there's several aspects of the 5G technology. So for now, I think we should clap for the minister and say, thank you, well done for putting Nigeria on that map before we now start talking about the next things.
So now let's look at the technicalities, you know, the sites. What is changing, especially in terms of the equipment? What is changing, you know, from what was in place with the 3 and 4G, you know, to what we're going to be having now?
At the very beginning, I don't think so much will be changing. So this is where the question now is, why 5G, and is it what all the hype is about? So there are two standards. There's the standalone, which is a full 5G deployment from baseband to base stations to devices to equipment to antennas, a full 5G deployment. I think very few countries are beginning to have that now. But what we will see is a non-standalone, which is the 5G deployments are sitting on already 4G existing technology. Now, 5G is expensive, like I said. It is not on the lower end of the frequencies, the 3 gigahertz, the 1800s or the 1900s, or the 2.6 gigahertz. It is on the higher side of the frequency. What that means is that while you can do a whole lot, right, the signals don't travel very far. So you need to densify the already existing 4G for the non-standalone. For the standalone, you need microcells all over the system. So you need more cells, which means more fiber optic deployment rollout, which means more infrastructure collaboration with infrastructure providers, which means more investments in antennas and radio systems. So it is not cheap. And which is why I said, I don't think we'll see anything really, really different other than what we're seeing presently with 4G deployments. In fact, one of the providers that is deploying now is already sounding like as if it's 4G. Buy 100 gig and get your modem. So there's really, really nothing significantly different from 4G.
Oh, okay. So I mean, Emmanuel, let me bring you into the conversation. I mean,
Okay.
what's the word in the streets? I mean, in terms of the cost, I think, a lot of people have been talking about the cost and, even the reach. But what's the word in the street? What are you hearing?
Okay, so I think it's like we just pointed out here now. It's important that we have 5G.
Yeah.
But from what I've observed, I don't think it's meant for everybody yet. So smartphones, SIM cards have become ubiquitous. So everybody can easily own a 3G or a 4G device right now. But for that, it seems it might be a different segment of the market that might be able to afford that. It costs about $100. So right off the bat, it's not for everybody. So, and I think company that just launched it, MTN, is changing its strategy. They've covered a huge part of the mass market with smart internet penetration and mobile penetration. So they want to go to the homes. It's like a broadband strategy. So they want to own the home. So when you think about it, an individual like me might prefer to use 4G moving about. But a family will be able to afford that amount. Say a middle-class family, a civil servant or someone earning a reasonable sum of money can afford to install that 5G device in their homes. And I think that's a strategy that we might be seeing at this early stages of the technology deployment. So maybe not individuals carrying 5G devices on the streets, but homes, offices, and all of that.
So what's the implication of this now in the federal government is trying to have 70% broadband penetration by 2025, as the broadband policy says. What's the implication for achieving that 70%? Because as it stands, we're at 44.5% thereabout.
Okay, I think there are numerous possibilities, and for 5G to add to that number, there will have to be a lot more infrastructure deployment than we currently have. So more fiber optic cables, more cells or locations in different places. So I think 5G does not change much. It's the policies and every other thing that underlying the national broadband strategy that needs to change, right? So right-of-way issues needs to be fixed, and Lagos has been doing this unified fiber project around the state, and I'm actually very, very optimistic for that in Lagos specifically. So with a dig once policy, different telcos, different ISPs do not need to be digging again. They just need to latch onto the existing infrastructure in Lagos, right? But for other states, I'm not sure how it's going to work.
That is going to work.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to, the cost and all of that as
Exactly.
well. But let me bring Samuel into the conversation. Samuel joins us via Zoom from London. Samuel, so let's take a look at all of this. When you look at this launch, there has always, when a new technology comes, actually, it's usually, you usually have that mix of excitement and also of worry or fear. In this instance now, the fear is coming from the fact that, already we have cybersecurity threats here and there with the existing infrastructure that we have. But what would the situation be? And, when we fully embrace 5G, what would the situation be, and what measures do you think can be put in place to mitigate such threats?
Sure, absolutely. So with the 5G, we essentially upgrading from the current technology which we have, the legacy systems, onto a more newer technology. And in this sort of transition, we need to pay more attention to the design, the deployment, configuration, maintenance of the network. And here we can see we have two elements. So in Nigeria, the NCC, they need to ensure that the 5G deployment that aligns with the international standards and also the scheme. This is the Network Equipment Security Assurance Scheme. And this scheme was jointly defined by the Third Generation Partnership Project and also the Global System for Mobile Communication. And this is sort of schemes which they need to sort of define to. And also in terms of sort of software-defined network, we're talking around virtualizations of system, and the Nigerian have the Nigerian Cloud Security Computing Policy, which the installers need to apply to. Now, we talk about users of this equipment. So as a normal user, you follow the defense in depth principle. So just like similar to most devices, you talk about hardened password. You talk about locking your mobile device and just making sure you have antivirus and following the good cybersecurity policies.
All right, cool. So that's pretty much like one. How would I put it now? That's like one arm of the pie, or one piece of the pie. So if you're looking at it now holistically, in terms of maybe personal usage, say for your devices or for your home appliances, because with 5G we know that the possibility of IoT is unbelievably high. So, I mean, when you're looking at it now from that perspective, because you're going to have smart homes, smart cars, smart cities, and all of this, all of this are joining and things that are going to be happening. How can one be, because look, you're looking at the fact that there's going to be a lot of data that will be shared. So how do you protect yourself in that kind of situation?
Sure, that's really good. So with IoT devices, it's quite interesting because what you're doing is you're opening a route onto your network for these devices. Now you have best practices. Most IoT devices, they come with default password. So as a user, when you purchase an IoT device, you need to make sure you've changed the password to make sure they are not default, so attackers cannot come in. And your router, which you use at home, you do have best practices. So things like hiding your SSID, also things like making sure you've got VLAN in for your early critical equipment, and then also updating. A lot of IoT devices vulnerabilities are disclosed quite regularly. So you as a user, you need to make sure that you're keeping up to date with the updates for your IoT devices. And from a pragmatic point of view, from a technological point of view, you need to make sure that this device understand the risk which you're bringing onto your environment. And this sort of best practices should ensure that as a user, you're securing your home and the devices which you're using.
All right, of course, I hope people put that to mind when this fully takes place. But let me hold you there for a bit, as well as our guests here in the studio. We'll take a quick break and we're back and look at more other things going on with the 5G. That's in a moment. Please stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. We still have with us our panelists in the Lagos studio as well as via Zoom. Before we went on break, Samuel in London was talking about security, but let's get more on that as well from here in the Lagos studio. One day, looking at security now, Samuel actually touched a bit on it. But, the regulators, what part do you think they should be playing in all of this, especially looking at the fact that this will expose Nigerians, because with this, you're out there pretty much. Like you said, you're waving that flag, so you're out there. It's going to expose us to a lot of things. But security-wise, again, what should be done individually? Or let's even look at it from the point of the regulators.
So from the regulators' point of view, in the United States, they took a very, very stern stance on the equipment manufacturers. So every single 5G equipment was subjected to scrutiny. And they realized that China was imbuing some spyware into the 5G network. Now, 5G is not just about hardware.
Yeah.
it has a network virtualized function, which is why you can slice it into different functions, even if it's just one network. So one network can be serving IoT, the same network can be serving the home, like you said, the same network can be serving automation, the same network can be serving agriculture. So what the NCC and NITA needs to do right now is to set up a standard for approving 5G equipment. So that the DSS, the National Intelligence Agency, scrutinize these vendors who will be supplying our operators. What are you bringing to my country? Are you spying me? Because you can do that with 5G very easily now. And then for individuals who are using, we need to now be a lot more aware because it's software driven. Yeah. And so that means that all your banking details and everything, you need to have an antivirus on your system once this 5G network takes over.
Now, should we be scared? Because I mean, it seems like a lot. I mean, Emmanuel, what's your perspective on this? Also looking at the fact that with this would now begin to deploy so much, in terms of say precision firming, telemedicine. I mean, there's a lot of things that this will expose us to. But what's your take on that, especially with security again?
So I don't think. I think if we want to be very, very serious with security for 5G technology, we have to start now. Yeah. Now when it's not so widespread, it's not. So those things you need to pay attention to. So things as little as two-factor authentication on your device, on your phone. It's very, very important because these days we're seeing a number of unscrupulous companies with loan sharks, for instance, reaching out to people's families and family members. With 5G technology, all these things become so much easier to do. So there's onus on the part of every individual to take their privacy on the internet very, very seriously. Yeah. But I don't think that should make us scared. Exactly. It should make us sit up because for us to reach the levels or the heights we need to reach as a nation, I mean, in the UK, for instance, they've signed a partnership with Qualcomm. Qualcomm makes some of the chips in our phones. They signed a partnership to introduce smart agriculture in farms. And we all know the Nigerian government has been big on farming. So what are the things we can do with that? Those are the things we should look at while implementing those standards that needs to be implemented at a regulatory level and also at the individual level. Must be taking everything very, very seriously.
So, I mean, now I'm having, my fears are, gradually being allayed because you both say, rather than being scared, we should actually, embrace it, but at the same time, keep up with the times. Like they say, desperate times call for desperate measures. So, yes, we should keep up as well. But, Samuel, let me get you back again and get your thoughts also in terms of what can be done or, the possibilities that can come out of the rollout of 5G.
Sure. What I've seen from a security point of view is they do say people was layer zero, as we call it. And that training and awareness is quite a very important piece because when we say on IoT devices, you're introducing a device on your network, which you have your phones, your laptops, and other devices. And if you have a compromise to an IoT device, that network which your other devices are could also be compromised. So I think from a understanding of risk, the government and agencies and companies should start telling people that also introducing these devices, you're introducing the risk, and then we can then get people to start updating the devices and following security best practices like the two-factor authentication, hardening password, and also updates. And I'll add from the government point of view, a sort of a cross-functional stakeholder working group getting together the academics, the CERTs, and the response team, and the policymakers, and to see how we can then start creating standards for the equipment imported into Nigeria, as well as also equipment made in Nigeria. So ensure that data are not being exfiltrated out of the devices from Nigeria to also other countries which we're not aware of. So just sort of the general awareness of risk and keeping up with security best practices and the government collaborating with the key stakeholders, those sort of two key areas should ensure we have a safe implementation and a safe roadmap.
All right, let's hope that we put all of that in place, when the time comes, when this is fully embraced. But Samuel, I have to say thank you to you for joining us today and sharing your thoughts on this.
Thank you.
Of course, you're welcome. One day, let's also get more in terms of what we can do with this. So we've looked at it from all of the perspectives, but what can we do, pretty much, like when it fully rolls out? I mean, we have a lot of enthusiasts in this country, people who are doing a lot of things with technology. What can they do further with 5G?
I would suspect that the government did not roll out 5G as a user-specific technology. I think that 5G was rolled out to help us catch quickly on the industrial 4.0. So what we'll begin to see is innovation around 5G. And I hope that that's what will happen. So on a very basic level, very quickly, we were speaking about right-of-way earlier. What 5G does is that it eliminates that. So I can transmit 20 gigabits of data between here and Ikoyi on a 5G network without a need for a right-of-way. So that's like wireless fiber. What that will do, because the latency is very low, I get my data in less than 1 millisecond. So imagine places like Borno where there's war and people can't go to farm. I can deploy robot farmers into that space and use 5G to control tractors, control harvesters, control things like that. I hope, and I imagine that that's where Professor Pantami wants us to go, where places where people can no longer go to. 5G is now used to solve challenges that insecurity has brought upon us. 5G is used to solve issues of bypassing prepaid meters. 5G is used to solve problems of education, of telemedicine, things like that. That is the only way. I mean, in Nigeria alone, you could have up to 23 million IoTs. That's revenue enough for any operator that is using 5G. But if the focus is on, oh, I want to deliver broadband to the already existing captive market, that's like a miss. That will be a great miss for our nation. So I hope it is in this innovation that we will see the deployment of 5G networks.
Well, I would, go with that hope also and hope that, things just play out and pan out well at the end of the day. But I have to say thank you to you, Wande Dalemo, founder of Way5 Wireless, as well as you, Emmanuel Paul, managing editor at TechPoint Africa, for joining us.
Thank you.
And of course, this is a continuing discussion. We'll see how it goes, in the coming days, months, and even years. And of course, I'll come back and look at this again. But thanks for now for sharing your thoughts.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Of course. Now that's where we are. Thank you so very much for watching. I'm Victor Matthias. As always, we'll leave you with the most viewed videos on our YouTube channel in the past week. Bye for now.
This week's top 5 videos begins with the dismissal of 2 soldiers over the murder of a cleric.
First one of call.
It's followed by the discovery of mummified bodies by the police in a sanctuary in Edo State.
The next is Orator Shrine.
Third spot sees another dismissal, this time by the police following the flogging of a Nigerian by a constable with a machete.
We have a choice.
In second place is former President Chief Olusegun Obasanjo asking Nigerians to choose wisely come the 2023 general elections.
And if we don't make the right choice, we don't blame anybody. We blame ourselves.
While in first place is Benue State Governor Samuel Otom confirming the meeting between erstwhile presidential hopeful Governor Nyesom Wike of the PDP and presidential candidate of the APC, Bola Ahmed Tinubu.